I'm bringing up Dawson from CN. What is CN? Connecticut,
Hello.
I guess. Theist. Hello,
No,
Dawson.
I'm from Canada.
Oh, Canada.
From
Okay.
Canada, sorry.
All right. I should start doing what Forrest does and just come up with funny names for these initialisms, because I am horrible when it comes to like state and but anyway. It says here, Dawson, that you're asking the question: can the Christian faith be reclaimed under a different title for progressiveness?
I'm on those lines. It's interesting just hearing the previous conversation about evolution, because like I'm a biologist, and so I found that all very interesting. But I would consider myself to be a progressive Christian. I don't know how much of my story I want to hear, but I definitely don't believe in like the God and like the evangelical sense of, he's all knowing, all powerful everywhere, and having to go to scripture and to protect it. But I think that we have put God in a very small box when we do that. I honestly don't think, when we look in the Gospels, for example, we see a very different way of how faith was lived out. And so I was wondering if we were able to redefine what faith means, if it only meant to love your neighbor and to love yourself and make the world a better place. Would you guys be open to that sort of way of life or faith, rather than having to, argue over what faith is right now in the evangelical sense? I don't know if that makes any sense to you guys. That's kind of something I've been thinking about.
Are we arguing about the definition of faith?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, right now, as it's culturally defined, especially in the Western world, it has to do with Western evangelicalism is, the Bible is inerrant, and there's a lot of authority placed upon it. But is there any value if you were to?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
There's so many different ways I can phrase this. Believing something that is not evidently true. My favorite way of putting it is that faith is an unreasonable assumption that is asserted without reason and defended against all reason.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm trying to figure a way to rephrase it.
How would you define faith?
Sorry, how would I define faith?
Yeah.
Faith is putting your hope into something that it may eventually become true, even though you might not necessarily have the means to know that at the time. And so, that could be a religious aspect, that could be a secular aspect, maybe.
Does that not also translate as something that is not evidently true?
Not evidently true?
You're putting your hope into something that might turn out to be true, maybe, hopefully, but isn't necessarily true. It certainly isn't evidently true. You can't show that it's true. You just hope that it's true. So your definition and my definition, they're the same. You're hoping for something that is not evidently true.
Yeah, I think under this definition of faith, I think, Dawson, that under this definition of faith, this is more about feeling good over being accurate. And if you're the type of person
feeling good, actually. Sorry,
well,
I said it's a good point. So
let me finish. There's a little bit of a delay, so I'm not trying to talk over you. So just bear with me.
Yeah.
You said that you said that faith is hope that something is true, even though we don't have a good reason to believe it's true currently, but we will hopefully eventually find a good reason to believe it's true. Is that an accurate summation?
Yeah, and I guess you have to define what you're hoping to be true, right? If we're talking about, something like, the coming again of Christ, or something that we can verify measure, you have to really sort that out. But
the reason
really depends on how you define that.
Yeah. So, by the definition that I'm getting from you, the faith is talking about the hope. And when you think about hope, you're thinking about, the feelings about it. Because when you hope for something, you want something, you have a longing or a yearning for something to come. And that to me is emotional.
Mm.
There's lots of things that we have hoped to be true, but it turned out they were not true. Like, my friend is on trial for murder. I hope he's innocent. I hope he's not guilty, but he might be found guilty. So the faith itself isn't, while it offers some emotional comfort, it does not offer any actual like practical utility or practical way to determine what's true or false in our world. And it probably really comes down to what your values are. If you value feeling good over being correct, then sure, faith is a great thing. But if you value being correct over feeling good, faith is actually a pretty terrible thing.
Yeah, for me, I can't be more against faith. From my philosophy, only accurate information has practical application. And the only value any information can have is in however accurate you can show it to be. If you can't show that it's accurate at all, then it has no value at all. And thus, every preacher's sermon is worthless.
Oh, really? Okay. So, yeah. So, I mean, I guess I'll just talk a little bit there. So I go to I guess you would say a progressive church where I live. And so we're very affirming. And when we do our services, they talk about it's not so much focused on a specific type of faith in the evangelical sense of, you have to put your faith in God and you got to repent of your sins. He's going to come back and, Jesus, like all of that stuff. I would agree with you guys. You can't really verify that. It's, it doesn't really make any sense. And I would agree with that. So I had to go through this shift. Okay, well, my faith is looking to the radical, love of Jesus and like the way he stood up to empire. And my faith is that by doing that myself, I can hopefully work towards, making the world one step better in a way that would be more, for my children's children, right? So that's sort of where I'm coming from, if that makes sense. I'm not really interested in debating, like for example, the previous caller of like evolution and all these things. And then I'm a scientist myself. So like, I would agree with that in those aspects. I'm just more, I guess there's a very thin line between my sort of progressive theology and maybe, an agnostic or atheism in that sense, but I think it's a very important line. But I'd be curious to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
My thought. I'm sorry, Eric. Go ahead. I talked too much.
No, go ahead. I was gonna ask for maybe a more concise summation of what you just said, because you put a lot out there, and like I said, I think I mean, from what I gathered, maybe my points on that would be that I don't think that Christianity is a net benefit for. I don't think Christianity is a net benefit for the world, and I don't think that religious faith is a net benefit for the world. Sure, it offers comfort. Sure, it does some good things, but I think overall, when you equal out all the or you do all the math, it is a net detriment to our world. And I mentioned on a previous caller that I also think it infects like faith, and because faith is the admission that you don't have evidence for something, and when you admit that you don't have evidence for something, but you believe it anyway, that's irrational. And I think that type of thinking, that type of behavior infects other things in your life, and that can hurt people. Like, for instance, we see, there's extreme cases. There are Christians who think that their God spoke to them and told them to drown their children. There are Christians who think that God is speaking to them through a book, and then they go out and they vote to revoke the rights of others, the rights of groups of other people that they are against. So I see this, and on top of that, like I said, faith doesn't get you anywhere reliably. Faith doesn't get you to an accurate conclusion reliably. No, not
there's one other
at all whatsoever.
Maybe one other definition of faith we should go out there. I remember a professor of philosophy who did a speaking tour on the notion that the faith is pretending to know things you don't know, and I agree he's correct about that.
Yeah. Faith, it's kind of like a puffer fish. The fish is trying to show, hey, I am much bigger than I really am. And I think the faith is kind of the same way. It's a person saying, I am more certain than I really am. It's kind of a, like I said, it's kind of a false thing. It's saying, I know I lack this that we all accept for other things, so I'm going to substitute something else in there. And look, it's an appropriate substitute, but it doesn't work. It's kind of like trying to bake a cake, and one of the person's like, I don't have any flour, so I'm gonna I'm going to I don't know, substitute asbestos. It's like it doesn't quite work. That might be kind of a slanted analogy, but it's kind of like
Any
that.
white
Like
powder,
any white
salt,
powder that I can
cocaine,
find.
whatever.
Yeah. Rat poison, lime, cocaine, yeah, whatever you want to put in there. But yeah, so I mean, we know evidence works on everything. Like evidence, proper evidence will justify any belief. So I don't see why we should give faith or why we should give religious claims or religious belief a pass on that.
So yeah, so I know, yeah, for the record, I would say that like I agree with all the things you've said there in terms of like, you know, the religious conservatives that do all these crazy things. I would agree. All I'm saying is there are obviously there's a lots of I do, for example, I view scripture as a mythology, as not literal at all, and more of a wisdom book. And you know that's how I'm trying to guide, you know, my life per se, you know, to the best I can. And you know, religious institutions, you know, they do offer space where people can have community. And I'm aware that there's a lot of harm that comes from them. I am fully aware of that. But you know, in terms of the church that I am attending, you know, it's a progressive space for affirming of everybody, and it's a safe space where we're able to have some community to sort of wrestle with like questions of like what does it mean to be alive, the human experience, and all of those things. So
Dawson, maybe I can ask you a question here.
Yeah.
Maybe I can ask you a question there. So you're saying, I mean, I completely agree. There are churches out there that, you know, when you kind of like evaluate everything, yeah, there's some really good groups of people out there who gather on religious reasons and do good things.
Yeah.
Is there anything that your religion, your religious group, or any religious group can do that requires the religion?
What do you mean by that? Requires religion?
You know, like, is there like let's have two groups here. We have Group A, which is a religious group, and we have Group B, which is a non-religious group. Group A feeds the homeless and the poor. Group B feeds the homeless and the poor. Group A has community and friendships bloom, and you know, camaraderie, and they do like game night and they have fun together. Group B does all the same things, and I can list off just about any activity, positive benefit that both groups are performing together. And I'm asking you, is there some type of positive thing that only the religious group can do that the non-religious group can't?
No,
there you go.
No, I don't think so. But the funny thing is, if you actually look in the, I just want to mention one thing.
Go ahead.
But the funny thing is, if you actually look in like the especially in the book of Acts, you know, the very meaning of having faith was just being in community, sharing all your possessions, and making sure that everybody was cared for. Like that was literally the definition of what faith is in those early days. And so what I'm saying is that it can be reclaimed faith so that, you know, whether or not it's a religious group or not religious group, it doesn't really matter how we identify it. We can all just sort of be in community and make sure everyone is sort of taken care of and all of that, right? And so whether or not it gets defined as
described it. This is the first time I've ever heard faith described as communism.
Yeah, but let's just roll with that and say, okay, let's just roll with that, Dawson. So this kind of ties in. So the question I asked and that you did answer, and what you just said really does tie into your original question here on the call. You and I both agree that both groups can do the equal amounts of good. There's nothing that the religious group can do that the non-religious group can't, which tells you that the religious part is not necessary. And you go by that, but here's the thing though: if you go by, because anything the religious group does, a non-religious group can also do, and there are many other non-religious groups which do those things. So the religion's not necessary, the faith is not necessary. And if you're saying, okay, the Bible defines faith as being good to other people, that ties into your original question. Can can Christian faith be reclaimed under a different title for progressiveness? And that title is just be a good person to others. No faith is required, no religion is required. Be a good person to others.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think another good question is what do you think a perfect world would be, right? I think perfect world is where everyone has their cares or their needs are met and cared for, and have all the basic necessities. Whereas, if you ask a more conservative religious person, they would say a perfect world would be everyone believes, this set of things. And so we're at this point now where there's a stark divide because religion is a very powerful tool to keep people under their umbrella. But I think to go towards a perfect world, as a progressive Christian or as an atheist, we both agree that, that's the spot where we want to go to. That kind of make sense?
I guess. But if you were asking, what do I think a perfect world would look like? I'm not sure I could describe one, but perhaps my approach to answering that question would be I could take this current world as it is, and I can make it one step better. I can remove slavery, or I can remove poverty. I can remove sickness.
Yeah.
And then I can take it another step and say, okay, now I can remove, irrationality. And then I can remove corrupt governments. And I could perhaps iterate and step towards something more perfect, but I can't just outright say this is what a perfect world would be.
So likewise, I would love to reform the meat industry so that it isn't quite so insidious. I don't know that we can get rid of it entirely, but we can certainly fix it.
Yeah, replace it with meat, not synthetic meat, but artificial meat. That would be a great step forward.
I would love it if we would just make our own food in a variety of different types.
Yeah.
Where we don't have to, we don't have to imprison animals in tiny cages and then slaughter them brutally.
Yeah. But anyway, all right, Dawson. Hopefully we addressed your questions and everything. So you only been on for about 15 minutes. Do you want to go through perhaps some questions about whether you're justified in your beliefs or not? Or if not, we can end the call there. I don't want to.
That's a good question. I guess I can ask a follow up to you guys.
All right. Give us some thought.
Do you think? Yeah. Is there any in terms of religious institutions? Do you think there are benefits that can come out of them that the atheist world or secular world could really benefit from? Because a lot of folks that come out of. Sorry, go ahead.
As I mentioned before, the only value information can have is in however accurate you can show it to be. How could
but I guess
baseless assertions of impossible absurd possibly
I guess I should probably be more specific. I guess I'm thinking more in terms of there's a lot of tools that religion has. On Sundays, people get together and they're able to, yes, they sing worship, but there's community there and there's ministry that involve getting together and common goals and all of that I think the secular world really could benefit from, right? And so I think a lot of people
we here at the line. So Dawson, just to address what you just said, we here on the line gather every Sunday, twice in fact. We go out and we do good things in the world. In fact, I just came back from BajaCon. So we're already doing that. But there's nothing for us to learn from religion there. That's just something humans do.
You're in the local Dallas area. We have the Dallas-Fort Worth Coalition of Free Thought, which is a collaboration of a couple of dozen different secular groups, Plano atheists and Fort Worth atheists and a number of other, and including the local chapter of Satanic Temple, which I think has changed their name to the Key Loving Atheists. I'm not sure, but they'll hold meetups at breweries and beer gardens and places like that, so everybody can have community that way.
Yeah, I think your question can basically be answered by our previous part of the conversation. There is nothing. We both agree that there is nothing that religion offers that a non-religious group can't. Now, we might be able to point to things that churches might do better or more, but none of those things are something that we would learn. We can just simply say, okay, we can maybe do this thing better, but we already do those things.
We can also point to things that churches do that atheist groups would not, because they are not things to do.
Yeah.
Right.
I wouldn't, for instance, just for an example, I can't imagine an atheist group shunning somebody for accepting a blood transfusion to save their life. But I can find lots of religious groups that do that, including my old one. So yeah. And that's the thing too, like religious groups, their rules and their community guidelines or their community values are driven by what they think a God has dictated to them through a book that has numerous interpretations and contradictions and all that. So that's something that religions do that, non-religious groups don't. So like, yeah, I can't basically, in a nutshell, I can't point to anything that a religious group is doing that an atheist group can't. But I can point to a bunch of bad stuff that religious groups do that atheist groups don't.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
you guys think that sorry?
We don't do a lot of hating on the gays.
Yeah, but yeah, that's fair. Like for example, like I know that the church is really problematic for a lot of those issues. But I guess my original question is, take for example the church that I go to. It's inclusive, affirming of all lifestyles, I guess you say. And so, you
can I ask you a
then that yeah, go ahead.
Why do you go to a church?
Why do I go to the church?
Yeah.
That's a really good question. I've actually thought about that. And so, I used to go to a Baptist church and then I sort of deconstructed. But I still find going to this church very helpful in terms of I've gotten to know the new church I'm going to now. Good community, good resources, made a new friends that I've been able to connect with. And so, especially here where I live, it's a bit of a Bible belt. So,
can you still be their friend? If you stopped attending, can you still be their friend?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So that's why I was wondering.
I went to church willingly. I was 11 years old, and my parents decided they were never going to bring me to a church again because I accused the preacher of lying because he was saying things he cannot know to be true as if they were certainly true. And that is called lying.
Right.
And if that's called lying, then that religion is lies. And I couldn't go to a church because why would I want to sit there and listen to someone lie to me all the time?
Yeah, I would agree with you. I would agree with you there. And so, I guess the difference I'm trying to make is, a lot of the religion we have now makes those really extraordinary claims that are just, not true. And when I look at the gospel stories, I'm going, well, in those gospel stories, faith was, as I said earlier, was just about having unity that cared for each other, all the needs were met, and so I don't have to believe in miracles or the divine authority of Scripture. I can sort of look to that example in the church that I go to and try to really make that a reality. And so my question was if that is now what the definition of, I don't know if faith would be the right word, I guess, whatever you've been saying, but the common goal is to create a world where, we can all sort of move together as, with human flourishing, even if we use Jesus as our example in which we're doing it under. Like, is that something you guys would that sort of change your guys' claims a little bit? Or will you be willing to include that into your claims, I guess? I don't know if that makes sense. Sorry, that was a lot.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to parse it out so I can answer it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I was listening close enough because, again, like this ties into our previous part of the conversation where it's like I don't see how these groups can offer anything that a non-religious group can't.
Right.
Let me try to ask you this, and then maybe we'll call it good there. Let's say hypothetically, Dawson, you have two groups you're considering joining. Okay, both groups are identical in what they do, the outreach they do, the good things they do, everything. But one group has one additional thing, and that they believe in the Bible and they believe Jesus died for them. But all other things are equal, though. Which group do you choose?
That's a good question. I would have to really investigate what you mean by Jesus died for them, because there's a lot of connotations that can have, right?
Well,
so there's
I mean,
just a claim that they can make, and then there's all. Sorry, go ahead.
Let's go ahead and remove that then. They just simply believe in Jesus. For whatever reason they do, they believe in Jesus. But all of the things are equal. Which one do you pick?
Honestly, it could be a coin toss. I could probably attend both. It's at that point, I'm not. Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, Jesus is more of a guide in which I try to live by, and so I don't necessarily, if one group doesn't believe Jesus, but they're living out the very things that Jesus has, just asked us or to do, then I don't really think there is necessarily a difference. But if a group is just claiming to follow Jesus, then I would be interested, and I'd be curious, right? Because I'm a curious person. I want to see what that means to them, what that
Sure.
and how that impacts them. And so I don't know. I'm very open to all of those things, but I'm also aware that it can lead to a lot of harm. So I'm not sure.
That's fine. But here's what your answer tells me, where you said, well, it's basically just a coin toss, which means that that's not a factor in the decision. You're looking at other things rather than the religious belief as the factor. And we've established that religion doesn't offer anything that non-religious things can't. You just simply said you said right there, you basically said that the religion is of no importance in the decision. So perhaps going forward, don't worry about trying to reconcile religion with anything. Just go forward and be a good person and find other good people to join hands with and work together with. The religion's unimportant in the discussion at all.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. Like, I mean, that's the same thing that in the early times, in the early church, I think was built around that same principle, right? Of exactly that. And so whether nowadays that's called progressive Christianity or it's called atheism, I think that's what I think we all should be striving towards. And so,
or just drop the religious thing altogether. Like I said, it's if the religion is not important and doesn't even factor into a decision, like I just posed you, just drop it.
Yeah,
it's the same way. Like if I'm looking at it's the same way. Like if I'm considering joining two different groups and they're identical in every way, except one group wears nothing but green T-shirts. I don't care. That's not even why even bother having to reconcile whether or not we should wear T-shirts when we're doing good things. Why should we even bother about who worries about Jesus when we're all doing good things? Like it's not even part of the conversation at that point. Who cares?
Yeah, I'll agree there. Anyways, I think we can wrap it up. But yeah, I appreciate you guys' time.
Right. Yeah, that was a great conversation, Dawson. Thank you so much. And yeah, you have a good night.
You guys, bye.
Bye. Okay. Was that?
It's better than the first guy.
Yeah, I enjoyed the conversation, and I think according to the history of the call, because Dawson, we have like notes from your previous appearance. Your previous, you had some other topics, and I think you were labeled as an agnostic last time. Now you're a theist. So it sounds like, Dawson, I don't want to like psychoanalyze, put words in your mouth. It sounds like you are going through some considerations about your status as a believer, and that's totally fine. It's okay to go from changing your labels as you try to figure things out and navigate this. If you're indeed like deconstructing or in the process of deconverting, that's all fine. I'm not criticizing you about that. But yeah, just ask yourself, if you're trying to hold on to a concept of faith or hold on to religion because that's what you grew up with, you have fond memories of religious groups, all those things, you might want to ask yourself, why are you holding on to faith and religion when in this call we've admitted, we both agreed that it doesn't offer anything to the table that some other source can't. It is not really a factor in certain decisions that you make. You might have emotional attachment to it. You might have really good memories, like I said. I went through the same thing. I have family members who also went through the same thing when they're deconstructing. Like they're like, I don't want to lose these benefits that I saw. So there might be some emotional considerations there, but if you can set those aside, put them on the shelf, come back to them later, ask yourself why. Other than emotions, other than they make me feel good, why am I trying to hold on to this?
Eric, do you want to learn how to Mongolian throat sing? Check this out.
No, I don't. No, keep that shit to yourself. Don't hear it.
Anyway, thanks for watching that clip. Patreon.com/calltheline is where you could support us. And maybe you should subscribe and like the video because it was a killer video. Or maybe it wasn't. Was it a Forrest video? If this was a Forrest video, you don't have to click like. If it was an Eric video, go ahead and click dislike.